They are screaming, they're not asking to get out, they're begging us to keep the gas on. The log entry is timestamped 4:17 a.m. The chamber microphone had been silent for nearly 15 days. No movement, no speech. Just the low hum of recycled air and the metallic groan of steel walls expanding in the cold Siberian night. Then, without warning, the silence broke. A whisper at first, then 5 voices speaking in unison. On October 27, 2010, a user under the name Orange Soda posted a story to the Creepypasta wiki titled "The Russian Sleep Experiment." Within weeks, it had spread across Reddit, 4chan, and horror forums worldwide. Within months, millions believed it was real. The story claimed that in 1947, at the height of Stalin's rule, Soviet researchers sealed 5 political prisoners inside a chamber and pumped them full of an experimental stimulant gas designed to eliminate sleep. After 15 days, the men allegedly mutilated themselves, tore out their organs, and begged to remain awake. It was described as a declassified Soviet document. There were no names, no facility identifiers, no archival numbers, and yet people believed it because it felt real. Tonight, we're not just retelling the legend, we're investigating it. Was there ever a Soviet sleep experiment? Could something like this have happened? And why does this particular story refuse to die? The answer is darker than fiction. To understand the fear, you have to understand the timing. In 1947, the Soviet Union was not a place of transparency. It was a regime forged in blood. Under Joseph Stalin, the NKVD, later reorganized into the MGB and eventually the KGB, operated prison camps known as gulags across Siberia and the Arctic. Between 1930 and 1953, historians estimate that over 18 million people passed through the gulag system. Millions died from starvation, forced labor, exposure, and execution. In places like Kolyma, where winter temperatures dropped below -50 degrees Fahrenheit, prisoners mined gold in conditions that defied survival. If someone told you Soviet scientists conducted unethical human experiments in 1947, you wouldn't dismiss it outright, because history already proved they were capable of horrors. Take, for example, the real and documented atrocities of Unit 731 in Japanese occupied China between 1936 and 1945. Under General Shiro Ishii, prisoners were subjected to vivisection without anesthesia, frostbite testing, and biological warfare trials. After World War II, many of those scientists were granted immunity by the United States in exchange for their data. Operation Paperclip, initiated in 1945, brought over 1,600 German scientists to the United States, including former Nazi researchers. The Cold War had begun, and ethics became negotiable. The CIA launched MKUltra in 1953, a top-secret program that tested LSD and other psychoactive drugs on unwitting American citizens. The program remained classified until 1975, when Senate hearings exposed it. So when a story surfaces about Soviet scientists experimenting on prisoners with a gas that eliminates sleep, it doesn't sound impossible. It sounds classified. But when you start pulling at the threads, the fabric unravels. Let's examine the claim. The Russian sleep experiment describes a secret facility somewhere in a Soviet military base in 1947. 5 political prisoners are promised freedom if they endure 30 days without sleep. A stimulant gas keeps them awake. After 5 days, paranoia sets in. By day 9, they scream for hours. By day 15, they mutilate themselves. The story provides no city, no region, no research institute, no commanding officer, no supervising physician, no archival reference, no file number from the Soviet State Archive of the Russian Federation, known as GARF. For an alleged declassified document, it contains no bureaucratic fingerprints. Real Soviet records, even secret ones, carry designations. Take Order No. 00447, issued by the NKVD on July 30th, 1937. It authorized mass arrests and executions during the Great Purge. The document has a number, a signature, a date. The Russian sleep experiment has none of that. Researchers and archivists who have combed through Soviet medical archives from the late 1940s have found no record of a classified sleep deprivation program involving prisoners and stimulant gas. Sleep deprivation research did exist during the 20th century, but not like this. In 1964, high school student Randy Gardner stayed awake for 11 days and 25 minutes under scientific supervision in San Diego, California. His experiment was documented by Stanford sleep researcher Dr. William Dement. Gardner experienced mood changes, memory lapses, and hallucinations, but he did not mutilate himself. In 1989, the U.S. Army conducted controlled sleep deprivation studies to examine performance degradation. Subjects experienced cognitive impairment, microsleeps, and paranoia after extended wakefulness. None exhibited the extreme violent psychosis described in the creepypasta. Medically speaking, complete insomnia beyond 2 weeks without any microsleep episodes is virtually impossible. The brain forces shutdowns in seconds-long bursts. Even under extreme stimulant influence, the body deteriorates rapidly. The legend claims the prisoners survived 15 days without sleep and then another 5 days after being removed from the gas, despite severe organ damage and self-inflicted wounds. That defies biology. But the story persists because it exploits a real fear. What happens when the mind is denied rest? Sleep is not optional. It is neurological maintenance. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system flushes metabolic waste from the brain. Without it, toxins accumulate. Hallucinations begin around 72 hours. By day 4 or 5, severe cognitive distortion sets in. The legend exaggerates these real effects into body horror. And that's where psychology comes in. The Russian sleep experiment works because it weaponizes plausibility. It borrows the aesthetics of Cold War secrecy. It mirrors the cruelty of documented regimes. It references political prisoners, an undeniably real Soviet reality. But it inserts something supernatural. In the climax of the story, one mutilated prisoner allegedly tells researchers, "We are the madness that lurks within you all." It's not science. It's myth. So where did it really come from? On October 27th, 2010, the story was posted as part of a Halloween-themed writing contest on the Creepypasta Wiki. The rules required original fiction. The author later confirmed it was fictional. There is no Soviet file, no experiment, no chamber in Siberia. But here's where it gets unsettling. Despite the story being debunked, thousands of YouTube videos, blog posts, and TikTok narrations present it as real. Some add fabricated details, fake coordinates in Moscow, imaginary scientists invented file numbers to enhance credibility. This is how modern myths evolve. In the Cold War era, misinformation required state machinery. Today, it requires a viral post. And yet, the story touches something deeper. Because while this specific experiment never happened, human experimentation did. The Soviet Union conducted psychiatric abuse in the 1960s and 1970s, diagnosing political dissidents with sluggish schizophrenia and confining them to psychiatric hospitals. In the United States, MK Ultra victims were dosed with LSD without consent. In Canada, the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal performed psychic driving experiments under Dr. Ewan Cameron between 1957 and 1964, funded in part by the CIA. These were real. They had names. They had victims. They had documentation. The Russian sleep experiment doesn't need to be real to feel possible. Because history already wrote chapters worse than fiction. The climax of the legend describes researchers shooting the final surviving subject inside the chamber. As he dies, he allegedly whispers, "So nearly free." It's poetic. It's cinematic. And it's entirely fabricated. There is no evidence of a Soviet stimulant gas designed to eliminate sleep in 1947. Amphetamines were widely used during World War II by German, British, American, and Japanese forces. The Germans issued Pervitin to soldiers. The US distributed Benzedrine. These drugs suppressed fatigue temporarily, but not indefinitely. The human brain cannot function indefinitely without rest. No classified gas changed that. So, why does this story still terrify millions? Because it taps into a uniquely modern anxiety, loss of control over our own minds. In an era of surveillance, pharmaceuticals, and psychological warfare, the idea that a government could trap people in a room and chemically manipulate consciousness feels uncomfortably plausible. The Russian sleep experiment is not a document, it's a mirror, a reflection of Cold War paranoia, a reflection of documented atrocities, a reflection of our distrust in institutions. The aftermath of the legend is more telling than the story itself. Since 2010, it has inspired short films, artwork, conspiracy threads, and even indie horror games. Many viewers encounter it without ever learning it was fictional. The line between storytelling and disinformation blurs. Unlike declassified CIA documents, like the 1977 Senate Intelligence Committee findings on MK Ultra, there is no archive to consult, no Freedom of Information Act request to file, because there was never anything to declassify. The chamber never existed. The 5 prisoners never had names, because they were never real. But the fear is real. Sleep deprivation remains a controversial interrogation tactic. The United Nations Convention Against Torture classifies prolonged sleep deprivation as a form of torture. Reports from detainees at Guantanamo Bay in the early 2000s described extended wakefulness as part of enhanced interrogation methods. History continues to flirt with the edge of this myth. So here is the terrifying truth. The Russian sleep experiment never happened, but the world that made it believable absolutely did. A world of secret programs, of erased prisoners, of governments experimenting on their own people. The legend thrives because we know, deep down, that institutions have crossed moral lines before. When the final line of the creepypasta fades and the last survivor whispers into darkness, what lingers isn't the image of mutilation. It's the possibility. The possibility that somewhere, sometime, someone decided that sleep was an obstacle to overcome, and tried to break the human mind to prove it. The coordinates don't exist. The file number was never assigned, but the question remains. If such an experiment were possible, would we even be told? There is no abandoned Siberian facility to visit, no sealed chamber rusting beneath Arctic snow. Just a digital ghost born on October 27th, 2010. A story. A warning. A reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hidden in classified vaults. They're hidden in what we're willing to believe. And the next time you hear a whisper in the dark claiming to be declassified, ask yourself who wrote it and why. Because not every leaked file is real, but every legend reveals something true. And sometimes that truth is far more disturbing than fiction. If this story kept you awake, the next one might not let you sleep at all.